So in this part of the series about spiritual health for leftists, we're going to talk about a spiritual practice that you may think everyone else really needs to deal with, but you do too. And we're going to talk about dealing with the shadow. I'm Damon. I'm a Christian leftist talking about spiritual health in this series. And trust me, you may hear the word Christian and you may hear the word shadow and think that I'm going to be talking about some magical woo-woo stuff. No. I'm going to talk about this in a very practical way. We have to talk about this stuff in a very practical way. In 2019, come on. Plus, the concept of the shadow really has its origins in psychoanalysis, people like Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud and all that. But if you don't like those guys, don't worry, it goes beyond them, because it's gone so beyond them that now many people just associate it with like New Age spirituality. But no, it's wider and deeper than that. And it's something that has always existed throughout history, but in modern Western culture seems to have just gone on hyperdrive, something that we really need to pay attention to and address. Now, first of all, what is the shadow? Well, think about the certain characteristics and thought patterns and behaviors of yours that you think if anyone out there were to find out about you, you'd be canceled. Okay, now that may only work for some of you out there, but I think it's a good start because it gets you to really start thinking about these deeper parts of yourself. And so the shadow really starts to form when we're very young and when we're raised and told, hey, don't do that. Don't act like this and never participate in this, never eat that, never hang with those people, never read that type of stuff, you know? And this is something that just helps us form a bit of a foundation. We all need a foundation growing up to bounce off of and move beyond. And so think of this. Think of a parent or some sort of authority figure that tells you, never lie. I don't want you to ever lie. And then one day you end up lying about something and then you get caught and then that person gets extremely angry at you and scolds you and says, I told you to never lie. That part of yourself that desires to lie gets pushed down further and further and further because you want to meet up to the expectations of your authority figures. So that part of yourself that lies, you just completely dissociate with, because you're not a liar. You're a good person. You don't lie. That's someone else. Other people lie. Or let's say your issue is anger and you're an adult and you're at work and you're in a high stress environment. What we do to dissociate from our shadow, from perhaps our anger part of our shadow, is that we end up projecting it on everyone else. It goes from first person to second person. Perhaps you sense the actual real anger in someone else and you use that as a hook to attach your own deep-seated anger and you project onto them. They are always angry. You are always angry. And you're angry at me. And if you continue to dissociate from your own personal anger and you continue to cast it onto others, to project it onto others, then it goes from second person to third person and suddenly the world feels like a very angry place and everyone is angry at you, or it results not necessarily in that specific way, but through simply depression and anxiety, and you don't know what to do with it. It goes from I to you to it, and you can never get over that overwhelming, overarching sadness and depression and anxiety until you start to own the anger within yourself. I think one of the most easy to see examples of this are the stories we've heard over the decades of men who led anti-gay organizations who spent years and years talking against gay people and trying to change gay people only to eventually come out as very gay. That which they found very unacceptable within themselves, they had to try to eradicate it in everyone else. Or a much less dramatic and heavy example is those people online that constantly post about how much they hate how much people post online. And projection is something that we all are very deeply aware of. We see it all the time. And I think we see it even more through interacting with people online. I'm sure there's plenty of you out there who have gotten into an argument online with someone, and all these things they're saying to you, about your beliefs and values and who you are, feel like, who are you talking to? There's no way you're talking to me or about me. Everything you're saying, literally every word of it, is incorrect. And if you start to look deeper in it, you start to realize, oh, they're projecting. Also, coming to that realization that someone is projecting at you, it usually doesn't help to then reply, sorry, you're projecting, because usually people can only discover that for themselves. And so in those cases, it's best to just ignore them, walk away. You don't have to respond to everything, my friends. And this is something we all see online in leftist online conversations. This is something that people rag on the left for a lot. I mean, it exists within everyone online, but it's something, I'm not sure why, but it's part of the left's reputation right now, that all we do is attack people online. And I only say I don't know why because it's like everyone is doing it, but I guess the left has found a way to get really good at it. And I think deep down we all know a lot of it is just such a waste of time. I've even seen a lot of people talk about how, I'm involved in like actual local leftist organization groups, and the conversations we have there are wildly different than the online leftist conversations. And I think it's because when you're face to face, it's a little more difficult to project onto someone else. Online, it's so easy to project. So you can continue to cast your shadow on everyone and everything else, ultimately leading to you being even more hurt. Or you can learn how to actually own these parts of yourself. Now, framing it in this way of first person, second person, third person is something I got from Ken Wilber and his integral spirituality stuff. And so I like it because it's very, very simple, surfacey way to start this work. And he talks about owning the shadow as a 3-2-1 process. Casting the shadow is first person, and then it's you, and then it's it. And then owning the shadow is the reverse of that, 3-2-1. It begins with thinking of what deeply bothers you, then think of the person that deeply bothers you, that deeply irritates you, and think of the particular irritating quality about them, and then move to yourself and ask yourself, where is that quality within me? And that's just the beginning, that's the surface. And then it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper from there. But I think that's great step one, starting with that. And that's not denying that other people have certain irritating qualities that they need to fix, or certain qualities that are actively hurting you that need to be addressed. But it is so much easier to address those things when you're able to take your own shadow hook out of them and only address their own issues instead of tying your issues with them as you're addressing them, because then they just feel like, some of the things you're saying have nothing to do with me. I like this story in Genesis about Jacob, the father of Israel, who gets his name changed to Israel, and that's where the whole thing starts. And he ends up wrestling with God, or it also calls this figure that he wrestles with an angel, and it also refers to it as a man. And also, if you really read deep into it, it seems like he's wrestling with himself. It's not a either or here, it's all of it. He's wrestling with all of it. Because so often our deep, deep wrestlings feel like we're wrestling with all of it. So let me read this to you real quick. And by the way, this is late at night during sad boy hours. And he is in the middle of such a painful, stressful time of his life, never dealing with so much of early trauma and very much running away from his problems. So, in the middle of sad boy hours, it says, Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he struck him on the hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then the man said, "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have wrestled with God and with humans and have prevailed." That's what Israel means, to wrestle with God. Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. Now, I could go on and on about this story for hours perhaps, and that's how all of these Bible stories were written, for you to dig deep into them, wrestle with them, ask all kinds of questions, and lead to all kinds of interpretations. That's why the whole thing has lasted so long. And I say that because there's many interpretations of this story, but let's get one here and just notice how interesting it is. Who is he wrestling with? It's interesting to note that this begins with a man attacked Jacob, but then further into this account of this wrestling match, it says the man is telling Jacob, "Let me go, what are you doing?" Who's doing the attacking gets blurred very quickly, and it's interesting it even ends up with Jacob telling this man, "What's your name?" And the man says, Why do you ask my name? And I think that's even perhaps pointing to the fact that there's no separation here. That question doesn't even make sense. It's just you, Jacob. And I think this is like an ancient telling of this process of 3, 2, 1, third person, second person, first person. You start with this overwhelming depression and anxiety about the problems of the world, and then you see it within someone else, and then you see how that exists within you too. Reversing the process that we all go through of having a problem deep within us, and then we repress and cast onto someone else, and then it results on everyone else. And this is all to help us become way more healthy as we're fighting the good fight. Like I've said in most of these videos in this series, taking care of yourself, taking care of your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health is one of the ways that we refuse to let the fascists win, because you need to be healthy out there, okay? And in these conversations, we so often talk about the importance of listening to others, and I'm totally for that, and I've made videos about that too, but this series is really figuring out how to listen to yourself as well, which is also very, very important. So that's all I got for today for this super duper basic surfacey rundown of shadow work. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this. I love y'all. I love hearing from y'all as well, so leave a comment, tell me what you think. And if you want to hear me talk about this stuff I talk about on YouTube in a more free-form and interactive way, go follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/whoisdamon. Right now we're streaming every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so I'll see you over there tonight, hopefully. And also, if you want to support me, I would greatly appreciate it. Support me on patreon.com/Damon Garcia. I so very much value all my patrons on there already, so shout out my patrons: Karen in Colorado, Ranger Jenny, Refined Your Scene, James Finlay, New Transcendentalist, Kristen Mouse, Rob Hutton, Jack, Jacob McCarthy, Theory Plebe, Mike Lodato, and Frank Morales. I appreciate you all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.